One game wonders. Now, of course, I could put David Tyree all over the thumbnail. I'm probably playing that stupid clip right now of him helmet catching him, fuck the Giants. And I could just make this video all about David Tyree and the helmet catch, but you guys know that. We all already know about the helmet catch. David Tyree was a bum, is a bum, had a decent little Super Bowl game, made the big catch, blah, blah, blah. That's it. That's all the guy ever did. Yes, he is a one-game wonder. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about one-game wonders that maybe you don't always remember. Maybe you will, maybe you will. I'm not saying that these are completely underground or forgotten one-game wonders, but what I am saying is we are going to break the norm, we're going to stretch it a little bit, and we're going to find some unique one-game wonders. Now make sure, ladies and gentlemen, drop a sub, drop a like. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers, and once we hit 1,000 subscribers, I'll do a backflip, and I can't do a backflip. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into forgotten one-game wonders. First on our list, ladies and gentlemen, is Jonas Gray, a former NFL running back who had just one good game in his entire career. And honestly, people thought that his NFL career was going to be on the rise after the game, and then he just completely fell off the map. And, you know, the classic one-game wonder. Gray had an explosive, crazy game in 2014, and he's now, he is going to be remembered in NFL history after his game. But first, let's start June 27th, 1990 in Pontiac, Michigan, where Jonas Gray was born. He was a standout football player at the Detroit County Day School and would later play college football at Notre Dame. Had good flashes, seemed like a strong player, but definitely got hampered by the injury bug and had a torn ACL his senior year that killed his draft stock coming into the NFL. He would go undrafted in the 2012 NFL draft, and he would sign as a free agent with the Miami Dolphins originally. Gray would spend some time bouncing around some different practice squads like the Dolphins, the Ravens, but finally would stick with the Patriots, who signed him onto their practice squad in 2013, and he was promoted to the active roster in 2014. And the night that Jonas Gray had the game of his life, we're talking week 11 of the 2014 NFL season, the Patriots faced the Colts on Sunday Night Football, and the Patriots needed to lean heavily on their run game, and there was Jonas Gray. In this game, he had 37 rushing attempts, 201 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, with 5.4 yards per carry. He became the first Patriot to ever rush for 4 touchdowns in a game, and just the second undrafted player ever in NFL history to rush for 200 plus yards and 4 touchdowns in a singular game. And he even became the AFC Offensive Player of the Week. His dominant performance was huge. The Patriots fans thought they had their next star running back. They thought he was the perfect cog in Bill Belichick's funny little offense. Fantasy football managers were trying to clamor and claim him. People call him the next LeGarrette Blount, or the surprise savior of the New England rushing attack. But what happened? Yeah, he fell off the map, as he would. It was immediately undone, not by injury or performance, but actually by discipline issues. Just days after that breakout game, Gray would oversleep and miss practice and showed up late to the Patriots facility. And then Bill Belichick, being the hard ass he is, did not tolerate this bullshit. Gray was then benched next game, receiving 0 carries, and he played sparingly for the rest of the season with just 91 rushing yards over the last 6 games. Despite finishing the 2014 season with 400 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns, he was actually left off this Patriots Super Bowl roster, even though the team went on to win the title. In 2015, he was released by the Patriots, and he briefly signed with the Dolphins again, and later spent short stints with the Jags and the Colts, but just never ever got anywhere close to the production he had on that one crazy ass night. So, final career stats for Jonas Gray: he would play in 18 games, had 510 rushing yards, and 5 career touchdowns. I highlight 5 career touchdowns because he scored 4 of those in one fucking game. He also had 20% of his career rushing yards in that one singular game. Now, Jonas Gray's story, it's definitely a good one. People remember that, especially Patriots fans. That was a great, obviously, battle against the Colts. They had Andrew Luck. It was an absolute memorable game for Patriots fans, but now he's more of a trivia piece when truly he could have become a star if he just couldn't fucking wake up to his alarm clock. And number 2 on our list is Chris Matthews, a former NFL wide receiver, best remembered for a couple jaw-dropping catches in the Super Bowl. And he stunned the football world with an insane first half for the Seattle Seahawks. And prior to that first half, he had never caught a regular season NFL pass before that. Matthews became one of the most iconic guys for a one-game wonder after that Super Bowl performance. But then guess what? He fell off the fucking map like a bomb. Early on in Chris Matthews' life, he was born October 6, 1989 in Long Beach, California, and played college football at Los Angeles Harbor College, would later transfer to the University of Kentucky, where he'd played 2 seasons from 2009 to 2010. At Kentucky, he had solid numbers and a pretty strong senior season with over 900 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns, but the big appeal to him was he was a big-ass motherfucker. 6'5", 215, could have used a little bit of weight, but 6'5", a fucking big-ass receiver with hands. And, he had some really strong physical tools, but Matthews would actually end up going undrafted in the 2011 NFL draft, and he would sign with the Cleveland Browns, but guess what? The Browns suck and couldn't develop shit, so he got released before the regular season even started. Then he took his talents north, to the fucking land of maple syrup and moose. He actually went to the CFL, the Canadian Football League, where he played 2 seasons for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, earning CFL Most Outstanding Rookie honors in 2012 after posting nearly 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. In 2014, Matthews would return to the NFL and sign with the Seattle Seahawks, spending most of the season on their practice squad. Though he was used sparingly for special teams during the season, he actually got promoted to the active roster late in the season, and before the Super Bowl, like I said, Matthews had 0 catches in the NFL, a complete unknown to just everybody. On February 1st, 2015, on that fateful day, Chris Matthews had a career-defining moment in the Super Bowl, where he was able to drop 4 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown, and just had a breakout performance. But now keep in mind, he was doing this against star cornerbacks, because while the corners were focusing on the Seahawks' top weapons like Doug Baldwin, Jermaine Kearse, and Matthews was able to sneak in and be a mismatched weapon with that 6'5" size. So let's talk about those key moments. His first NFL career catch was on a 44-yard bomb over Kyle Arrington in the Super Bowl. He would then later score an 11-yard touchdown late in the second quarter to tie the game at 14-14, and then he would catch another 45-yard pass to set up a huge scoring opportunity. Matthews was like nearly unstoppable in that first half, again using that 6'5" frame to his advantage. Nobody had height to even match him. Great body control during the Super Bowl, and was just dominating Patriots defensive backs. And for a second, it looked like he could have been the Super Bowl MVP. However, the Seahawks' offensive play calling just completely shifted in the second half. Matthews was not even targeted again, and that game obviously ended in the heartbreak when Russell Wilson would throw that goal line interception to Malcolm Butler, which everybody remembers. Fuck the Patriots. I mean, the Seahawks, I feel bad. Seahawks, they don't get a lot of love, but fuck the Patriots. They didn't deserve that shit. They should have just gave the ball to Marshawn Lynch. That shit was stupid as hell. But despite that breakout, Matthews was just unable to carve out any consistent role at Seattle the following season. In 2015, he would play in 9 games, only caught 4 passes for 54 yards, not even matching his amount that he got in the Super Bowl. He was actually released mid-season in November 2015 and would sign with the Baltimore Ravens, where he would spend most of 2 seasons primarily just on special teams, of having minimal offensive production, and then he was out of the NFL by 2017. He would later go back to the land of Mooses and Canadians and go actually to the Calgary Stampeders and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and again, his role was even limited there. His career NFL stats would read 16 catches, 176 yards, and 1 touchdown. And then, obviously, having 25% of his catches from the Super Bowl, that's crazy. That's crazy. But the legacy that Chris Matthews leaves behind was that one game wonder. But the big thing is most people don't remember Chris Matthews because of the fact that the Seahawks would end up losing that game. One thing I do remember about Chris Matthews is I remember that Madden card that dropped after the Super Bowl. That was a fucking dog-ass card, because any card that was tall was super OP. So he was like a baby Megatron and Madden Ultimate Team, and that shit was so dirty. I remember that card. I was so mad at that card. Dude was a fucking bum. But, he had his little moment. While his time in the league was brief, Matthews will at least always be remembered for that crazy first half performance in the Super Bowl. Ladies and gentlemen, finally on our list is Matt Flynn, a former NFL quarterback known for one of the most improbable and just crazy single game performances in league history. He was a longtime backup who spent most of his career actually behind Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, and Flynn's name will forever be linked in the record books because of a insane record-setting Week 17 game in 2012. A performance so great, so shocking, it actually would earn him a massive free agent contract that he would never fucking live up to. A complete waste of money. So, Matt Flynn was born June 20th, 1985 in Tyler, Texas, and would play college football at LSU, where he sat behind Jamarcus Russell. LOL, what a bum. And Flynn would finally take over the starting quarterback in 2007, and he would actually lead the Tigers to a BCS National Championship and earned offensive MVP honors in the title game against Ohio State. Not a super flashy quarterback, but he was seen as poised and reliable. Flynn would end up actually getting drafted in the 7th round, 209th overall, the 2008 draft by the Packers, where he served as Aaron Rodgers' backup and was seen as a developmental backup for Aaron Rodgers, like a nice reliable guy that they could build up behind him in that offense. He would earn trust of the coaching staff, and coaches definitely fucked with him and kept him around for a long time. You don't see backups typically sticking for too long, but coaches obviously trust him. But in Week 17 of the 2011 season, the Packers had already clinched the NFC's top playoff seed spot, so Aaron Rodgers was rested, obviously. Flynn would get the start over the Detroit Lions, and what happened next was absolutely insane. Matt Flynn would go 31 of 44 for 480 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, and 1 pick, and have a 136.4 passer rating. That was the most passing yards in a single game in Packers history at the time, keep in mind, and the most passing touchdowns in a single game in Packers history. He outdueled Matt Stafford, who would throw for 520 yards that game, but was not able to pick up the dub. Matt Flynn actually was able to pick up the dub in his first ever career start. Flynn's timing, accuracy, and command of the offense was impeccable. He was hitting Jordy Nelson, Jermichael Finley, Greg Jennings. It looked like he had been playing with the first team offense all offseason and just completely murdered that Lions secondary, which frankly was pretty ass, to be honest. Green Bay would win the shootout 45-41, and Flynn instantly became one of the hottest free agents in the upcoming offseason, just despite having only 2 career starts. Then Seattle Seahawks would do a Seattle Seahawk move, and they would sign Matt Flynn to a 3-year, $20 million contract in March 12th, with $9 million guaranteed. He's expected to be the team's next franchise starting quarterback. You should never trust a guy off 1 or 2 games to be your franchise quarterback, by the way. I don't know how the fuck we didn't learn this, but, Seattle's stupid. But lucky for Seattle, they had rookie Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson, the 3rd-round pick, would actually end up beating him out in training camp, and despite the big contract, Flynn would never actually start a game for the Seattle Seahawks during the regular season. So, now moving to his journeyman years, after that little setback, he made a bag. After the bag he made in Seattle, Flynn just bounced around the league as a typical backup would. Going to the Oakland Raiders, which is like quarterback hell. I think those were the 2 biggest places that were quarterback hell in like the mid-2010s, was the Browns and the Raiders. People forget that like Carson Palmer would have a sad tenure on the Raiders. Like so many sad quarterbacks would go to the Raiders just to be bad. But there's Matt Flynn. He would start 2 games, struggled, quickly benched for Terrell Pryor, who then became a fucking wide receiver. So obviously if you got benched for a guy that got turned into a wide receiver, you're cooked, bro. He would then go to the Buffalo Bills, get a brief stint, no playing time. He'd actually go back to the Packers to be a backup, and actually started a couple games for them in 2013 when Aaron Rodgers was injured, and would go 2-2 and help keep them in playoff contention. Then he would go to the New England Patriots and the New York Jets in the 2015 offseason, and obviously saw no regular season action. Flynn never again replicated the magic of that Week 17 performance he had. So Flynn would play in 7 NFL seasons, appear in 53 games, but only started 7 NFL career games, 2,500 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 11 picks, an 85.9 career passer rating, and a career record of 3-4. It's crazy to think that 6 of those 17 touchdowns he had just came in 1 game. Damn, more than 30% of his career touchdown passes came in 1 game when he started 7. That's wild. Matt Flynn's career is defined by, that crazy-ass performance and then that shitty contract he signed with the Seahawks. It got him paid, so you know what, shout out to bro. I wish I could have some fucking crazy performance and then somebody would sign me for a bag and then I could just show up and bullshit and be bad. But, shout out to Matt Flynn. He did, carve out a decently long NFL career. An average NFL career is not always 7 seasons, so shout out to Matt Flynn for sticking around the league. And you know what? At the end of the day, Matt Flynn got to fucking ball out, got his moment, and he got the fuck out. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not know who let me talk about fucking one-game wonders for the past 14 minutes, but somebody needed to tell me to shut the fuck up, and nobody did. So I'm going to do it for myself, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to keep this outro short and sweet. Make sure you like, subscribe, go follow me on Instagram. It'll be in the comments. It's in the bio. I just hit 2,000 followers, and it makes me feel good. I fucking play slapcock with myself at the thought of my Instagram followers, so let's keep getting that thing up. Again, we're nearly at 1,000 YouTube subscribers, so I'm going to fucking cream my pants when we hit 1,000. I'll do a public creaming for everybody. Most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, let's make sure we smoke crack, eat drywall. I'll see you guys all again very, very soon for another Gabe Sayers Believer video.